Hare Krishna. So thank you very much, and yeah, mantra. The first time I ever chanted the mantra, or a mantra, it was in India, when I heard, I'd made it overland from Europe to India, and the whole journey was by bus, the magic bus, the magic bus, and the magic part was that it reached such an old bus over hills and valleys, and then when I came to the Indian border, there was an officer with a big turban and a big mustache seated under a tree, and he asked me, "Why did you come to India?" And I said, "I came to India because I heard it's a very spiritual place." He said, "Ah, very good. You will go to Benares." And I said, "Yes, of course, because you don't argue with a man in uniform." And then he said, "Yes, you will, because I will buy you the ticket." He said, "Meet me at 6 p.m. on the railway station." So I did. I went there and he was there and he bought me a ticket. So that was really nice. You come into a country and the customs officer buys you a ticket, you know, and you're like, wow. And I came to Benares, and when I was on the train, you know, Indian trains are very, very full, and there was this man sitting in the luggage rack, and he was just chanting Ram, 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 Ram. Still going. Ram, 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 Ram. Half an hour, Ram, Ram, Ram. 1 hour, Ram, Ram, Ram. 2 hours, Ram, Ram, Ram. It's just hours and hours sitting in the luggage rack chanting Ram, Ram, Ram. So I was wondering, well, I don't know what it is, but it's quite something. Then there were Muslims praying on that train, bowing down. And finally, there was this old man, he comes to me and says, "Son, everything is in God's hands." It was then that I thought, did I get on the wrong train? Maybe this one goes to heaven, you know? It was just, everyone was so spiritual, so religious, and I'm from Amsterdam, and it's not like that over there. It's different. Anyway, so in Benares, I stayed on the Ganges, and it was really temples and rivers, and everyone was worshipping, and such an atmosphere. And then there was the mantra, Siri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Siri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Siri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, Siri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. So especially I like the way they said Sri, you know, usually we say Sri, but they said Siri, because in Banarasi Hindi, very high class, Siri. So my musical ear liked this Sri, you know, like a lot. And yeah, as a result, it's that mantra was playing day and night from a loudspeaker. So it's stuck in my head. So I took mantra with me, and later it changed to the Hare Krishna mantra, which I'll chant for you now. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Nitai Gaura Praname, Nitai Gaura Praname, Nitai Gaura Praname. Thank you so much. Once upon a time, there was a great king who lived in great opulence, as kings do, and especially did in ancient times. His palace, many palaces, were filled with gold and jewels. Why only one wife? Many wives also. Each one of them very beautiful. And yet the king was not satisfied. He had everything that the world can offer, the best of the best. So the king decided to give it all up. And one day went into the forest. And there in the forest, he sat down and detached himself. Because it is said the mind goes into the things and the things go into the mind. And then you carry them. So the king had been carrying so many strings, so many things in his mind. He was burdened. So when he was suddenly in that forest, he was not peaceful. But by his meditation, gradually, he brought his mind under control. Gradually, his raging senses that had been exposed to so much opulence for so long became peaceful. He was satisfied to live with some simple roots from the forest. And he went deeper inside and connected with the Supreme. And as he connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his meditation became deep, and he saw himself as the eternal servant of the Lord. Then he became self-realized. But one day, a tiger was roaming in the forest. Oh yes. All the animals were panicking, and the tiger was chasing a deer, and that deer ran at full speed. That deer came right past the sage who was sitting on the bank of a river. And that deer ran past at great speed and just jumped over that river to escape the tiger. Then, as the deer was flying in the air over the water, a little deer foal popped out. It happens. That little deer, somehow or other, fell into the river. The mother, as she landed on the other side, faced we don't know if it was due to running too fast or if it was due to the fear for the tiger, had a heart attack and died on the other side of the river. Tragedy. And there the little deer was floating, and just the sage was seated at the bank of the river, and there these little ears are sticking above the water. Instinctively, immediately, he grabbed those ears, pulled that little deer calf right out of the water. And then what? What do when you suddenly have a little deer? Oh, well, life changes, if you know what I'm talking about. When the little dear ones comes, oh dear, suddenly no more time for nothing. So the sage became highly entangled and busy, nursing his little deer. Oh yes. And then little deer was growing like cabbage. Oh, no problem at all. Little deer was doing well. So it came to the playful age, poking him. Oh yes, with the little horns or whatever they have in the back. The sage became more and more absorbed in his deer, and his meditation changed because he had no more time for anything else, and day and night he was thinking of his dear one. And then what happened? One day the sage came to the end of his life, and guess what? Yam yam vapi svaram bhavam chaditiyam takalevanam Tam tam evaiti kuntiya Salata bhagavata. As the Bhagavad Gita tells us, whatever you remember at the time of death, that is what you will attain. Well, guess what? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So in his next life, our meditator was a deer. But because that deer was not an ordinary deer, because after all, he had been a great self-realized sage. Therefore, this deer was remembering its previous lives. Most deers, and for that matter, neither do we, remember really what we were before. But it's still there, on a subtle level, in the subconsciousness. It wasn't Carl Jung or Sigmund Freud who invented the subconsciousness. It was already there in the Vedic literature, thousands of years ago. But what we find there is that the impressions of previous lives were stored in that subconsciousness. Anyway, in this case, our saintly king, now become a deer, was remembering its previous life. Thus the deer sage was thinking, or the sage deer was thinking, oh my God, I blew it. Oh well, I better be careful now. So it found itself an ashram in the forest where sages were residing. And this deer would just stay on the edge of that ashram, because in the ashram there always was the sound of sacred mantra. And by hearing sacred mantra and mantras, discussion on spiritual scriptures, that little deer spent its life. And so, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam charityanta kalevanam tam tam evaiti kanteya bhava whatever you remember at the time of death, that is what you will attain in the next birth. So since he had been listening to transcendental knowledge, in the next life he got another chance. This time he was known as Jat Bharat. Jat Bharat. Jat means like a stone. Jat Bharat was like a stone. Not stoned, but like a stone. How is that? Stones have no feelings, so they say. Then, didn't he have any feelings? Well, he was saying, this time I will not be swept away. This time I will simply meditate from day one. Oh, I will not waste years and years in forgetfulness and ignorance and play as a child not knowing what is what. No. This life, I will fix myself on the truth. This life, the spiritual truth, the deeper truth, not the physical truth, the temporary one. No, this life, the real thing, the eternal thing. I'll fix on that. And he was completely fixed, and his father tried to educate him and teach him, after you go into the bathroom and so on, you must wash your hands. And he purposely did it before. He refused to learn. He refused to be a social person and to conform. He was not ready for all that. No. He said, I will not get entangled. You must go to school. He was too dumb. You must work. He was hopeless. He couldn't do anything. 2 left hands. When his father died, his brother thought he was a fool, and they fed him a little bit. The burned rice, caked at the bottom of the pot. Give him that. The madman. Yeah? One day, a proud king passed by, and that proud king was being carried in a palanquin by several carriers. Unfortunately, one of the carriers had become injured on the way, and therefore he had only 3 carriers, and really, for a decent palanquin you need 4. And there was this person sitting in the fields. He had muscles. Said, "All right," told the soldiers, "get that fellow." All right. And they enrolled him. And Jat Bharat was carrying, along with the other carriers, the king in his palanquin. But Jat Bharat was very careful about ants on the path, because he did not want to kill and become unnecessarily entangled in all kinds of karma. No way. So when there was a tiny little ant on the path, Jat Bharat would hop aside and would hop left and right, and the king was rocking like, in that thing, like a ship at sea, and like it sort of disturbed his peace of mind. So that king was getting fuming, and he told the carriers to put him down, came out of that palanquin and told the new fellow something, what he thought of it. "You, no brain, can't you walk proper?" Then, finally, although his whole life, Jat Bharat had behaved like a fool, finally, he spoke deep spiritual knowledge. He explained that the body is temporary and just a vehicle, that the body itself is just a palanquin that carries the soul, which is eternal, and that the essence of life is about the eternal relationship with the Supreme. After a while, the king began to realize, oops, I made a mistake. This person is not a fool, he is a great sage. The king, having some knowledge himself, knew one should not offend such personalities. Fell at the feet of Jat Bharat, begged him, "Please forgive me for my ignorance." Jat Bharat, being a saintly person, happily forgave the king and blessed him. And so the king became a great saintly king who ruled over his kingdom. And instead of filling his pockets while being in office, instead of exploiting the people, he cared. He cared for the well-being of the people, provided for their material needs, organized transcendental sacrifices where everyone was engaged. They made a big arena and everyone would come to see the big event. Just like nowadays, a big footy match. And in those days, that everyone would come for the great yajna, the great fire sacrifice that would bring auspiciousness to the world. And so the king blessed his kingdom, and all the citizens were happy, and everyone in that kingdom made spiritual progress. And so our story comes to end, and everyone lived, guess what? Happily ever after. Oh yes, they did it. What else would be if society would be really spiritual instead of, well, you know what? Oh then, everything would be ecstatic. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare coming to an end, but the mantra goes with us, even in the car. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. See you tonight when we are floating in the white sheets with the head on the pillow. Then the sound is echoing. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Oh Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then when we wake up tomorrow, and the first thing that plays in our head is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more, one desire. So, finally, what remains, I want to thank you all. We sang like Gandharvas, that's the Vedic name for angels, beings who fly in the sky with wings and sing. You did well. The bass was cool. The drum was hot. The chorus was spot on, which is pretty good. In short, we had fun. So looking forward to more of that sometime, somewhere in the future. Thanks a lot. Hope to see you again soon. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Thank you so much.